All right, there we are. We did it. Jason and Pavlos, hello.
Hello, hello.
Thank
Hi.
you for being here.
Yeah.
So yeah, so this is a dev show and tell, where we are just go around and kind of show some things that we've been doing. Um, Pavlos brought us a guest today. Jason,
Yes,
hello.
it's my friend Jason.
Hi.
But I can do a quick little intro, I guess.
Yeah, do
Um,
you want to do that?
yeah, so just before we hit live, I guess Steve asked that, right? I guess, like how we met or... Yeah,
hmm
so
Yes,
we
it
used
was
to...
a bad timing for me to ask the question.
Yeah, and I
Classic.
just didn't hear.
We've just been pausing and holding that question, waiting.
we, no one has said a word.
But yeah, we both lived at some point in Vienna, in Austria. So we, I guess, just randomly happened that we worked in the same co-working space. Jason was working, I think, for a company in the UK, right? But you were living there and working remotely before it was cool and Corona and all that. And then I was with a company with a startup there. So and they were renting a space. So that's how we just kind of met and started hanging out and became
I have
friends.
a feeling that I kind of just occasionally wandered over to Pavlos and then kind of gave unsolicited input, you know.
Yes.
Yeah, this is a bug, and no. But yeah, I think that's like a very quick version of
That's awesome.
we met.
I think you
And
were Pavlos was working on vector-based UI stuff at the time, I think.
Mm,
And
yeah.
I was deep in the bowels doing
Uh,
virtualization. Um, I have since slowly bubbled further up the stack.
yeah, so we were both doing, I guess, Objective C at that point, right?
Yeah, I think so.
yikes.
Kind of fun.
Seems like a lifetime ago.
Yeah.
And
Uh,
Jason, I believe that you are located in Hawaii. Is that right?
I am, yeah. So it's actually kind of a gray day today, which is why I can keep the curtain open. But yeah, I like my aloha shirts, and so clearly the only answer was to move to Hawaii.
Yes, that's perfect. How long have you lived there?
We've been here a couple of years. My partner and I met in San Francisco, so we did the sort of the Silicon Valley thing. And at some point, big tech and the hustle became a bit much. So we're sort of regrouping over here in Hawaii, kind of adjusting what we're doing with our tech and kind of where we want to focus.
Sure.
It's
Cool.
it's it's pretty beautiful out here.
Yeah, I have visited once and I loved it. And I would love to go back. Living there, it feels like uh, I have only lived in a wintry place, so I can't imagine what it's like to just experience sunshine every day. That sounds lovely.
You have to remember to take advantage of it. Actually, right? It's too easy
Really?
to just sort of kind of like normal life settles in, and then you sort of you can spend an entire day working on your own projects and on code, and then suddenly you notice that there's a sunny world out there. So you have to actually
Yep.
remember to take advantage of it.
yeah,
Um,
better than noticing a lake effect or whatever it was called,
yeah,
Like
right.
affect snow.
right? Yeah.
You know, when I was rewatching some of your conversations, and I was sort of seeing Jackie's, don't talk to me about weather, and don't talk to me about, and I was like, oh, geez, this is a risky one.
Yeah, and
But you were brave, courageous. You came on and you left your background unblurred, and
Right, right.
it wasn't like you just put up a big like snow scene behind you.
I'll never be invited back though. So
That's actually not true.
Jack is here.
Not true. Um, okay, so we usually do kind of at the beginning here, just a quick sizing estimate to gauge kind of who should go when and how much time to give each other. I have something that I would say is pretty small to share. And I'll say also, if the two of you like keep going and have a lot of stuff, I don't even need to share what I have today. I can do it another time.
Absolutely.
How about you, Pavlos? What do you have for today?
I have one small one, it's pretty tiny, and one is like a small to medium, something like that. So pretty chill today. And Jason?
So I guess mine is kind of a medium bordering a large. So I wasn't really sure quite what to talk about. So I'm going to give you a quick rundown of everything I've got, or at least some of the highlights. And then the hope is that, I mean, Steve, this is all new for you. So if there's things that you want a tour of, or you're interested in the technology in something, or you kind of want me to fire up Xcode and walk through
Sure.
something, then I'm totally open to that. So I think we can sort of say it's medium, but if you want to dig in, then there's way
Yeah.
more opportunity.
That sounds great. So I think what we should do then, if it's okay, is I think we should start with Jason, so that we can get as far as we want with that, and then move to Pavlos. You can do one or both of the ones that you want us to cover. If there's time at the end, I can just quick jump in with mine, but no pressure to do that. How does that sound to you, Jason? Going
That
first.
sounds great.
Okay. Do you want to share your screen? It looks like you've already got it. You want me to go ahead and add it?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. So here we are.
Okay.
Wait,
Now,
quick break here. What's the peanut butter patties thing about?
Oh yeah, I forgot that I filled that in. Yeah. I
Right.
just ate 2 peanut butter patties before we started, and I couldn't
Great.
think of anything to put in
Great,
there.
simple,
I
nice.
probably should have left it blank. It's Girl Scout cookie season here, so
Nice.
that is one of my favorites, and it's delicious. That's it. Pavlos, you have a standing desk now. Is that what's going on?
I did have it, and in the last week I've been standing more. Not because it's better, just because I can't sit. I guess I can't yeah. I'm in the middle of this adjusting everything on my desk. Anyway,
Does it feel better? Like, do you feel better, like physically?
I mean, I've done this before. It's nice. I can't do the whole day, but
Yeah.
standing 1 hour and sitting 1 hour, whatever. That's not bad. Better than sitting the whole day and then hurting. So yeah.
Cool. Jason, anything you want to say about just one more project, or you just want to show us a whole bunch of projects?
I mean, just one more project is kind of the rather flawed mantra that I go by. So,
Sure.
I think you'll see why it's that.
Great. Let's roll into it.
So I think we've got through most of the introductions, but I figured I'd just put a little bit of information about me up. I've had a website now for I think 25 years or something like that. And I try and write about most of my projects there, but it goes in fits and starts depending on, kind of where you are in the process and how much your head is down. I think unusually I like to receive emails, so I'm sticking my email address up there. And the only social I'm on is Mastodon. You mentioned Hawaii, and I figured this was a nice little opportunity to include this photo I took on our hike on Monday morning. So this is
That's fantastic.
Isn't it beautiful? This is from
Yes.
Kaina Point, which is about a 5-mile hike from us. And fun fact about Kaina Point is it's one of the very few albatross nesting sites. So around this time of the year, we actually get albatross out there nesting, and they're ground nesting birds. So you get these, the big things, and you get these wonderful little football-sized fuzzballs with the chicks. I don't actually have a photo because I try not to disturb them too much, but you get to wander around that nesting site. Okay, so I figured I'd talk a little bit about what I do and run through some of those projects. I tend to work on kind of a combination of hardware and software projects. And hardware looks a little bit more like art. It's kind of more like, how do I stave off the amount of time I spend on a phone? How do I pluck some piece of information out of my digital being and drop it in the real world? Some of those projects I build are kind of very functional. They're just about not looking at a phone. And some of them are really kind of picking some little piece of information that you might not know is there and exposing it to you in a way that hopefully feels a little bit magical, helps you feel more connected to people. And then I also do a weirdly large amount of software. I've been an indie developer for the last 4 years, and over that time I have been scratching the itch of all the things that make my life easier, all the developer tools that mean I can keep on top of all of my projects. And then there's also a real focus on data management. And Pavlos would tell you from some of our conversations that more and more I'm kind of worried about local first. How do we kind of put data in people's, how do we empower people to manage their own data? And you'll see as I go through my various highlights here that those are the sort of themes that kind of recur. Sometimes they come together in one project. Hopefully it'll all make sense. Now at this point, I want to invite you, Steve, especially you, to pause me, ask me questions as I go. When Pavlos and I chatted, we couldn't work out which one of these to focus on. So I thought I'd just give you a quick highlight of each.
That sounds great.
Okay, so you're going to get one slide for every one of these projects. And it seems only right to start with Anytime, which is a bit of a collaboration with Pavlos. Pavlos kind of helped me, turn the handle and really get this thing out the door and polished. It's a combination of hardware and software. It is this idea of sharing your time zone with context, with a collection of contexts. So this was back when we were living in Vienna, and I was moving out to San Francisco, and my partner at the time was staying in Vienna, and I really wanted some way to feel more connected to her, but in a really low stakes way. And I realized I wanted some sense of her day, where she was in her day. And so I wrote a little web service, an iOS app, an incredibly over-engineered solution to that problem. But an iOS app, a web service, a watch extension at the time, all with the express view of letting you share a time zone with someone. So as you fly, Anytime keeps your time zone up to date with the service and then broadcasts that to all of your contacts. And where this really comes into its own is I built a number of these little Nixie tube based clocks that are running on an ESP32 that talk to the Anytime service. They register in the app, and you can pick a specific person for those clocks. So this one here is actually, took a photo of it a few hours ago. This is actually Pavlos's time. So this clock sits on our side, and it always shows Pavlos's time wherever he is. So that's kind of
really cool. I legitimately needed this as I was trying to schedule this and figure out what real time meant for.
Well, conveniently, Anytime is on the App Store, so it's out there.
How do people share? How do different people connect with each other?
So you send an invite via email. The architecture of this is perhaps not what I would build today. I built this about 12 years ago, I think. It's a fairly centralized solution, but ultimately I maintain a list of contacts. You send an email, which is an invite, and those contacts are managed for you on the service. The only piece of information that's even vaguely sensitive that I possess is the time zone. So I kind of reduce the granularity pretty quickly.
Right.
All right, I'm going to keep going.
Yes.
Status panel. So this is a collaboration with a good friend of mine called Tom. And this is really that, really focusing on that idea of how do I delay the time in the morning before I have to pick up my smartphone. It relies on an iOS app because we've got all the users' data there. So we've got your calendar, we can get access to your weather, all of the sort of information that you might want to see in the morning is there. what we do is we put it on. This is our take on the e-ink desk calendar. Really, it's been around for a while, and the idea is you wake up and now you know whether you have meetings, what's going on, and it's intentionally non-interactive. So there's no buttons, there's no way to add data to this. This is expressly for the purpose of getting a look at what's going on in your day without being drawn in. And for me, the goal was, how do I come up with a desk calendar solution that means I don't have to look at my phone until I'm walking out the door. It's architecturally, it has a kind of a pigeonhole kind of a server, and data is end-to-end encrypted. The device itself, which I have a prototype of here, I don't know if you can see that, is
That's the one we're
based
seeing
on,
in the photograph, right?
yeah, I don't, can
Or
you see my
slightly
camera?
different.
Yeah, this is exactly the same one as in the photo.
Yeah.
And the back is off on this one just to make it easy to work on. This is a Raspberry Pi based version, but we have ESP32 based ones. So the idea is that they're low power and they can run on battery. All they're doing is displaying, decrypting a set of pixels and putting them on the screen. All the rendering, all the layout is done on the device that is shipping the data.
Is that an e-ink display? It looks like.
Yes, it's a
Yeah,
color
okay.
e-ink display as well.
Ooh.
And unfortunately, I don't have something up to show you with that. But we have a privacy
word for
mode.
it.
So the only button that you can press on this thing is a privacy mode, which will flip it over to a placeholder image, and it's pretty fun to be able to have full color images as the placeholder.
Very cool.
All right.
So
Moving
you
on.
so you have one of those devices.
I have one.
Sitting like
Definitely one as well.
near your bed. Who else has one?
No,
Do you
I
have
I
one,
said
Pavlos?
yeah, I do have one, not set up right now after the move, but I did have it before in London, and I definitely didn't use it the way that Jason used it. I didn't use it to delay my like moving to the laptop or the computer, but it was there as like a thing adjacent to my screen that was like updating less often, which was kind of nice, like nice contrast to like the screen, I guess. Yeah, it was fun.
Jason, so do you keep it like near your bed so that like you wake up and you see it, or it's just like in a central location where you go sit and have a coffee? I'm not
You know,
trying to get
it's
like the layout of your home or anything, but just curious, like how you experience it.
I feel like we could do a whole deep dive on the layout of homes. I've moved it around. Right now, it kind of sits by my workbench. When I was in, a daily kind of get up and go out the door, everything is changing, and people are scheduling meetings on you overnight. It made sense to have it by the bed, because it really
Mhm.
did, depending on whether someone dropped a meeting on your calendar at 1 a.m. or not, really affected whether you got out of bed half an hour earlier or not. So it's moved around, but
Yeah.
really, it's the sort of, I have it kind of at the first place I need to see it.
Yeah. Yeah, so I have I have a Garmin watch, and that is one of the screens that's on it is basically just like my calendar. So I do that every morning already, where I'm just like, what does today look like, and just
That
check
makes
that out.
sense.
So to have it as like a standalone device actually sounds really appealing, and kind of fun.
I really liked it, and I previous existence was very heavily involving the Apple Watch, and I was a little allergic to it by the end. So actually,
Yeah.
kind of shifting away from an active screen to something like e-ink really
Yep.
helped.
On the left screenshot, that looks like so that is the app on your phone. There,
Mm-hmm.
at the bottom, there's date, weather, Zen quotes, a calendar. Do I have the ability to basically like choose which of those are going to appear on the
Yeah.
device on the
So
right? Yeah.
let's see if I can do this. I have a video here. There you go.
Oh,
So So this is status panel.
Mhm.
And so it supports multiple devices. If you drill in like this, there's an edit, and you can come in and you can actually choose which calendars are included. You can add data sources, you can add text. We had a lot of fun
Wow.
with the emoji. So is there not? Yeah, there's an elephant, right? So we had a lot of fun with the emoji in that we use Unifont, which is a sort of 1-bit rendering of the entire Unicode font set. So we actually had a lot of fun with this, kind of seeing how these black and white pixels turned up.
Yeah.
And it's all reorderable. I never got as far as adding sort of explicit JSON fetch for custom data, but that was definitely a thought, and I think that's possibly something we'll do in the future.
Yeah, it seems like there's a whole world of like connector type things that you could build there, integrations.
Yep.
That'd be really, really fun.
Okay.
With the
Oh,
combine
Sorry.
one, and then like John's artsy daily art, and then like the dithering algorithm and everything, and just like bring them all together for this.
I was so drawn in by John's art, and then you very kindly sent me some of the details afterwards, Pavlos, and I was wondering, and I think kind of integrating something like the artsy widget into this for the placeholder image would be a lot of fun.
yeah, that'd be gorgeous. I'm not mad, I won't say, but it's a bummer that John isn't here because this also reminds me a lot of something that he's been working on um, fairly recently, which is I don't know if he's talked to you about this, Pavlos, but he basically is like printing out. He has like some sort of convoluted Rube Goldberg connection of things that when he gets up in the morning on his printer, he has he calls it his morning packet that is like a printout of his calendar, the meetings that he has today. I think he does some like maybe inspirational quotes or something like that, and like a daily puzzle or something. Which is it's really just like that similar kind of approach of like I I know I can do all of these things on the internet. I know I can do them on a device, but like I want this a little bit of attachment back to something not internet connected or something that doesn't feel like it's just a distraction machine.
I think we have to encourage him to talk about that because I've
Yeah.
definitely been playing around with similar things myself.
Okay.
I have like a little Raspberry Pi that renders, gives me a random selection of things that I want to do, and something turns up on the printer in the mornings.
Yep.
So I'd
Yeah,
love to hear
that's awesome.
his take.
It's too bad he's not here for the two of you to jam about it, but I guess that's where we say you have to come back so
There you go.
that the two of you can talk about it.
Exactly.
There you go.
So there's your official invite. Carry on.
All right, let me keep going. So, believe it or not, we're only 2 of about 8 in. Okay, so this is one I think I can be pretty quick about. This is a complete result of the pandemic. This is very much a post-pandemic project. You remember when we needed to quarantine our mail, and people were saying you shouldn't be handling your mail for 3 or 4 days. Nobody knew if surfaces were dodgy. And ever the engineer, I decided that the only way to handle that was, manage that was to get a little receipt printer, build it up. This is a Raspberry Pi. And when you hit the button, it gives you an inspirational quote and says, your mail is, can be released from quarantine on such and such a date. And we would just get the mail in, we'd stick it down, we'd put a little receipt on it, and then process it again 3 days later. This is born out of that project. So we come out of the pandemic, we're all behaving mostly normally, and I have this Raspberry Pi receipt printer knocking around, and I couldn't work out what to do with it. So I put together a tiny little web app, which lets anyone send me a doodle. And for an open portal on the internet where people can send you doodles, I have received a surprisingly small number of inappropriate sketches.
There's
But
still
it's
time.
right. 1 or 2. I think there was an aubergine at one point. But it's a lot of fun, and it's really charming to wake up to a sketch from a friend, or just something from in the ether. And so this is very much more kind of the whimsy, the playful. This is entirely for me.
Yes, like the easiest way to send the fax, like to a fax machine, but like to one specific person in the world. Like anyone can do it super easily, but only to one person.
Right. And it's really lovely. I have quite a lot of friends who it turns out are budding cartoonists. Never knew this. And you give people a tool like this or something to play with like this, and it's amazing how they respond to it.
How many of those printouts have you like kept, and how many are like in the trash?
We have a whole bunch of them on the fridge. Unfortunately, the front of our fridge is not magnetic, so they're all kind of around the side, but we've got loads pinned up. I think I have a whole bunch of yours still, Pavlos.
Perfect. Nice.
Jason, I see a URL there on the left side.
Yeah.
Is that something that I can go visit and possibly
That is
send
indeed something you can go visit.
Okay, that's awesome. I will do that.
You and all the billions of viewers over here that can send the aubergines and all that.
Yep, there you go. I just want a perfect render of every emoji there is out there.
I can't help with that. It's going to be less than perfect, but I can send you I can send you drawings.
I'm excited. Maybe we can do a kind of a real-time feedback. I can get one of your drawings.
Perfect.
All right, moving on. Now we get to, when I talk about what I work on with people, I sort of talk about the hardware, and I generally describe this as the fun stuff. And then I talk about the software, and it's the boring stuff. It's really what I build to help me manage all of the plethora of projects that I work on, help me manage the data that I have locally. And so you get to these tools that are really born out of necessity. Builds is, I think, perhaps the simplest one to talk about. It is simply a status board for GitHub Actions. So the idea here, I have set up continuous integration with all my software projects, and I have them scheduled to run every day. And it's simply because as platforms, as SDKs are churning, I really want to catch a change that is breaking as soon as I possibly can. So when I come back to a project, I might leave a project for 3 months, 4 months as I'm working on something else. When I come back to it, I really want to know that it still builds with the current SDK. So I amortize the cost of that by building everything every night and checking it. If it fails, I take the time to fix it. And it's quite fiddly. GitHub doesn't really offer as many tools to do that. You can, you get emails and you can sort of churn your way through the emails, but I really wanted something that was a quick overview. So that is Builds. It's iOS, iPad, and macOS. And it kind of gives you a way to drill in as well. So there's extra details behind all of those cells.
So then, if you have a day where you check this and you see things in here, like can you talk more about how
what the process is?
How you use that? Yeah, how you use it and how it affects you.
So sadly, I can show you. In fact, let's move this one out the way.
That doesn't sound sad.
Well, the sadly was you'll see at the moment.
We'll see.
So most of the apps that I have widgets. So you can see down here we've actually got a widget for anytime, which is showing Pavlos' time. So just
I want that.
Continue. You too can have this.
I'm writing it down. I'm gonna install it after we're done here.
And invite me.
There you go.
And invite me, yes.
So this widget over here is the builds widget. And under normal circumstances, you would be looking at a green box here and everything would be good. The sadly is that somewhere last night, all of my macOS signing failed, which is exactly what we want to discover. So I would come in and I'd open this. And so now, and again, I think a lot of the things that I do in terms of my software is the goal is to make it easy to do it on the Mac, make it very, very fast, but also to make it super quick to do it on a phone. So, the whole idea here is like, I'm not bouncing through clunky UIs, clunky web UIs trying to do it. So it's all kind of, how do I get to the information quickly? So let's look at builds, which failed on me last night. So we can see kind of the annotations in here. Simple build failure annotation. And if we look in here, you can see the different build steps that are in that job. And I can quickly click, and now it kind of kicks me out to the web UI. So there's only so far I want to go with any of these UIs in terms of replicating GitHub's stuff. But now I'm kind of right at that failure, and it's a very quick process for me. It allows me to, let's say I wanted to just, Apple stuff is being dodgy. I can kick off a rebuild from here. So I can say rebuild everything, and that will transition to a building step. I can kind of pop in here and I can, that's not updated yet, but as that updates, I'll come in and I'll start to see the status of the build as it's iterating. And that's pretty much it. The add UI, it breaks it down by organization. So these are all mine, but if you can have other commercial entities in here, this is a nice way to separate your personal projects. And there is a lot of detail in a kind of classic inspector here for, okay, well, what was this build? What went into that commit? How do I dig in and see what code change I made here? Can I go look at that definition of that workflow? So it's really kind of trying to flesh out what I think is very much a missing piece in a lot of these kind of CI model. Yeah, I think that's
a while as well, and yeah, definitely very helpful to have but there are similar applications, and it's different application is great for some people and terrible for others, right? And this one, I feel was also for me easy to connect, I guess, with the way I was thinking about GitHub Actions and that stuff. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think a lot of, what really drove this is there's a lot of tooling out there which is geared towards CI teams, right? You're a build integrate engineer. This is your entire day job. You have the time and the motivation to go set up a full status board, to manually tweak everything. And the whole point of builds is to just kind of make it super simple. So this is one of those areas where I still have some UX work to do, I think, but I really wanted to sort of quickly see, well, what are all of my projects? And then be able to say, okay, well, I'm actually interested in tracking this specific development project. And now I can kind of add that extra build to my board very quickly. So as you kind of iterate, the goal here is, how do I very quickly keep this board up to date with the things I care about? And that all syncs through iCloud. So, on my phone, the widget that I have on my phone, when I eventually do pick up my phone and risk looking at it, will give me that status.
It went red just in time.
Yeah, it did, didn't it?
Oh.
Go on, Steve.
I was going to ask about pull requests. So I think one of the use cases that I would find tremendous value in this for is to have a good view into. I might have 3 or 4 different pull requests open on the same project at the same time, and I'm sitting there waiting for the build to finish. Um, do you, I see that I can manually go in and add one of these, configure one of these pointed at a specific branch, or so it seems. Is there any sort of like deeper integration where I can just tell it to watch for my pull requests on this project and see them all here?
The funny thing is, I think as an indie dev, I'm very much focused on my release branches,
Yeah, yeah,
much
yep.
more than I am on the PR cycle. I do raise PRs on myself. That's kind of how I do this. But I'm a little bit more willing to take an active role in that process. It makes a lot of sense though, and it's you're authenticated with GitHub. I know enough about your account. There's no reason that there couldn't be kind of a sidebar section that actually showed the PRs as well. That
Yeah,
makes a lot of sense. That's a good suggestion.
cool. I love it.
All right, I've got to keep going, and if we get to the point where I've gone through too many of these, do pause me. All right. It turns out when you build a lot of apps, you need a lot of icons, and especially when you're submitting to the App Store, you're in this very tight loop with Apple. They have pretty stringent requirements, and so as someone who's not natively a graphic designer, I really wanted a quick way to put together icons. Thankfully, the perhaps disappointingly, the aesthetic of most modern app icons is pretty simple, but it does make it incredibly easy to put together an app like this. So Symbolic is a very simple app. It kind of follows the Xcode sort of layout here for using SwiftUI to sort of kind of lay out a grid of icons. You can come in and you can pick symbols. I have the Google Material icons in here because they are a relatively permissive license that you can actually use in App Store icons. So let's kind of, pick one that's appropriate for today. And you can come in, you can change it, you can tweak some of the aspects that can help you get a bit more of an aesthetic that is appealing. There you go. But then it's a very simple process to export those as assets for watchOS, for iOS, for macOS. So it kind of allowed me to very quickly bootstrap a project, get something going, have what felt like a relatively consistent visual identity, but without spending too much time. With a view, to in the long term, if something grows, finding a designer and actually going in that direction. But this is how I get started. All right, moving on. This is the one I think that Pavlos was most keen for me to talk about. I don't know if that's fair, Pavlos, but
yeah. I mean, it's the one that I still use no matter what. So yeah, that doesn't have to be unpacked or anything. It's always there.
File away is kind of my take. Yeah, file away is my take on document management. So it really is just a matter of treating certain folders as inboxes and certain folders on your file system as archives. And so you have this kind of very quick way of what came in, what did I drop on my desktop, what did I drop in my downloads, and how do I file that stuff? I'm looking at my clock here and I'm aware we're 40 minutes in, so I'm going to just keep motoring on unless you have questions. Thoughts is something I use daily. It is a tiny, lightweight app for writing markdown text and notes. It creates a file for every single new note that you take, and it drops them in a fixed folder. This has been really transformative for me. It's a great way to sort of, as I'm thinking of something, I hit a global hotkey, I bring up thoughts, I write my thought down, and dismiss it, and it's kind of gone. It's out of my head, and I can come back later in something like Obsidian and read it up. Okay. Pushing
It
through.
just dumps it in a location where your Obsidian vault will find it?
Exactly, yeah. So
is that what it does with it?
thoughts
Okay. Yep.
here is on my machine, you just can set a notes folder. And that is in, this notes folder is my Obsidian folder. And then it's just a matter of a single hotkey. It'll grab your location from core location to work out where you are. So if you want to look this up by location in the future, it timestamps it. And it just has some very basic formatting in here for just annotating and quick tags. And it really is entirely intended in my mind to get this stuff out of my mind. As I'm working on a project, I might throw in little snippets of, I managed to make this work this way. Here's the code. This is how I get things done. Okay.
Very nice. Just a heads up, I'm having some CPU and lag issues over here. So if I seem behind, just keep moving.
I don't think I'd noticed from my end. So. Right, and now we're getting to the end. So this is a really fun one. I love my old vintage computers. I absolutely adore the little pocket computers, the little clamshell affairs that you get in the 90s. And I cut my teeth on a platform called Epoch, and prior to that, SIBO. And those devices had their own programming language, and that was one of the great strengths of those devices. You could write something that was a bit basic-like called OPL, compile it on the device. So I spent most of my math classes sitting in the back writing virtual pets, because that's what you do. And come the pandemic, my good friend Tom, who I collaborated on Status Panel with, he and I thought, well, what could we do? We'd love to bring this platform to iOS. Wouldn't that be fun? So Oppo Lua is a runtime and now a little app store for getting all these old bits of software from this particular, very niche 90s computer platform and running it on your iPhone, on your Mac, on your iPad. It's curious because the core is written by Tom, who is an absolute devotee of Lua. So we actually ship iOS apps here that run a tiny little Lua interpreter. So we're running the OPL, the translated OPL code in Lua, and then all of the kind of UI bindings are happening in UIKit, which is, quite a quirky platform.
This seems incredibly impressive. And I would love for you to talk more about like the technical side of it.
Right, and this is meant to be kind of a whet your appetite. This is pretty much my last slide, so I'm very happy to keep talking, or I'd like to make some room for Pavlos as well, at the very least.
Well, okay, so why don't we do this? Why don't we pause here, and then we can talk to you again about, at the very least, I'd like to talk to you more about this. And I know John would like to, well, I don't know that John would like to, I'm volunteering John to want to talk to you more about that kind of like morning, keep me off my phone type of solution. And then shift to Pavlos now to give him a chance to run through one or two of his. How does that sound?
We can continue with this one, or I can just show it in like a minute, and then we can go back to this. Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's roll through yours, Pavlos, and then we can jump back. And Jason, that might give you a little bit of time too to kind of frame how you want to dig into that one a little deeper.
Sounds good.
In your head. Okay, cool. Thank you for sharing all of that stuff.
Yeah, it's very quite a long list.
And it's super impressive.
Yeah, it's a bunch of useful, good projects. Yeah. Also, this last one, it's great by itself, but like it also has a bunch of other things on top of it, like the whole database that he built of like apparently all of the software that exists for that platform, which is kind of fun. Like that all of it is there and like finished, I guess.
Yeah.
And like the way they work, and yeah, I'll let Jason talk about this whenever. Okay,
Okay.
I can show you quickly my thing, which is I found this. I guess I can leader
Yeah.
key. Not something I built, something I found and really like.
Can you make your screen bigger or easier
Yeah,
for me to read, or possibly share only one screen? Or
make
unless
this.
that's just one widescreen. It's
How's
just
that?
one
That's
widescreen, isn't
better.
it? Yes, that's better.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so this is like leader key application, uh, and it's like a like a launcher basically. So I use it with a raycast. So we talked about this before. Now this leader key is like, if you are familiar with like the way Vim has the leader key and everything, is that you hit one specific key. In my case, F12, and then you get this little bubble here. And anything you type will be an action. So like if I type, you can see the cheat sheet here. If I hit like F12 and then T, then I go to my terminal. If I hit like F12 and like W, then I get all my window management stuff. So like if I have this over here and I want to take it to the left, I hit F12 WA and it goes to the left. Or something that I use very often, which is like open up a terminal or like a browser, and then I don't want to like do this or whatever, then I hit F12 W and then like E, and it will just make it tall, but without moving it or whatever. And yeah, you can like connect it to a bunch of random stuff. Like if you see, I can have like opening up like a file or a folder, which is pretty basic. One of the fun ones is like you can connect it even to Raycast or like any application. So like I have one that opens up a new Google Meet, if I want to just like create one, or like they have like the Raycast. What is it, like the Raycast confetti or whatever? It's like you can just have random stuff like that.
Nice.
And one that I also use. So I'm trying to use it as like a like go to my editor, go to my simulator. So instead of like alt tabbing, I'm not sure about this yet, but like if you see one of those, this PW, which you can't see now because it's already activated, is that I have like, it can control a LED strip that's behind my screen here. So like I have that connected to one of the like, TP-Link applications, whatever, and I have a shortcut that controls it, and then this just calls this shortcut. So I can hit F12 PW, and then it turns the light to white like it is now. So yeah, I don't know. It's a really nice way to do. Also this is the way that it's configured. I mean, you can just like add a new one and add the key like F, and then do whatever, pretty nice application. It makes it super easy in my mind to like I guess I'm done sharing. Super nice in my mind that like having to remember specific keys like command shift whatever W, I never could do that, and this one makes it super easy because it's just like leader key, WA or WP or W or RA or whatever.
Yeah, that modal nature seems like a really nice way to do that kind of. There's a sort of gradual disclosure as you go through that process.
Exactly. And then with a little cheat sheet, it's making it pretty nice. Yeah.
The
I
cheat
feel like
sheet
that's
seems
kind of
huge for me.
what I do with space in the Helix editor, where you get the little menu.
Exactly.
It's like suddenly modal editors make more sense to me because I have that cheat sheet.
Exactly like that.
I have a similar. I'm trying to craft a similar experience using Aerospace, which if I could actually share my screen today, which I can't even like hang out with you guys without things like getting swamped. I would do, but I now have like my cheat sheet is on paper, basically, which is like, yeah, It
I don't know.
works,
I
but I have
think
to
that might
update
be
it.
the perfect form for a cheat sheet.
Yeah,
You know, I really like the sort of the tangible thing that's sitting beside
yeah.
you.
I think similar to something I've done in the past with like my keyboard cheat sheets, where I printed it, I block printed
Right.
the layout of it. I'm thinking about turning that cheat sheet into something like I want an actual some boxes drawn on it, and then I can just write in what I need
So
inside
could
it.
you just hold that up
Oh
again? You
yeah,
block printed the cheat sheet? That's great.
yeah. So this is
You
my
should make
keyboard
this into
layout,
like
and
a
Oh, I love that. That's
it's like a
beautiful.
treasure map. I don't know. It's kind of
Mm-hmm.
silly. And then yeah, so
That is
I have a bunch
fabulous.
of them, and I can as I change my keyboard layout, which happens every once in a while. I just like grab a new sheet and write in where everything moved to.
should make it into a t-shirt or what was the thing that you were like printing on like uh, you know what I mean, right?
I don't printing T-shirts like with screen printing,
I know, but
or
you were
oh
doing
with the
something
block.
putting taking something off and then
Yeah,
like
yeah, like
putting
a
things.
linoleum
Yeah,
block,
that thing.
like that. This is like rubber. This is actually going to be a T-shirt eventually.
Okay. How
That
do
I'm
you
making
call
for a
this?
friend. Linoleum. So
But like
that one is not or relief printing, block printing, lino cut, all those things. I don't have an actual block of linoleum. Well, this other one I can show. This is one that my daughter was working on. But it's like this, like kind of thick.
Like it's
I
used
don't
for
know.
floor tiles, right?
It does, but and I don't think it's the exact same
Okay.
product, but it might be. I actually don't know. It is. It's the same name as that product.
yeah, I'd buy that
Okay.
keyboard one. That was great.
Yes, that's what I think. I think like if I were a person who was a self-starter, and really motivated, I would create those layouts for all sorts of popular keyboards and sell them, or those like printouts.
I'd kind of love to see them in you know, copper trace on a PCB, kind of on the back of the keyboards as well. Like,
Oh
you know,
yeah,
you kind of flip it over and you get the sort of that beautiful copper around the shape.
Yeah, in
yes,
case you miss your keyboard while you have it like flipped, you see
Yeah,
your
that's
keyboard still. Nice.
cool. So we have like 8 minutes left, Jason. Do you want to is
um,
8 minutes useful to you? Do you want to save
is
it for
eight
another
minutes
time?
useful?
It's up to you.
You know, I feel like we could save it for another time.
Okay.
I think there's so much to unpack in that. You know, that I'll whet your appetite a little bit, but you know,
Yeah.
there was how about I kind of share my screen and just sort of show you a little bit, kind of hopefully whet your appetite for the kind
Okay,
of
that
things
sounds good.
that are going on. How about that?
All right, I'm gonna add
So
your
if
screen
I
again.
move that down here, oh gosh, I've got all of these things open now. And somewhere I have this. So let's bring
What's
this
this
back up here.
application with like colorful squares?
The application with colorful squares.
I saw it on the dock and on the alt tab. Yeah, just a
Oh, so
quick thing.
that's DeckSet. So that is what I'm using for the presentation. So
Okay.
this is kind of Markdown
Cool.
based slides.
Nice.
Okay, so I'm just going to open an app and show you what it's like. I think that's probably the easiest thing. So Jumpy is a game I used to enjoy playing as a kid. And this is kind of a nice way to say, you know, here's all the things that we've had to do. We are simulating a hardware keyboard. So we're actually sending hardware keyboard events, which means we had to implement a UI text handler. Oh, and I crashed it. Here's a good one. One of the things that we had to do is because we're implementing a whole language and all of the system calls of the language, we can get quite a long way without everything. So to get this out, we actually added this specific catch for errors. So you can come in here and it will automatically let you raise a GitHub issue for a missing, really. I'm not going to try and go through that right now. But you can raise GitHub issues for missing syscalls, which means we very quickly discover what's going on. I will come back into Jumpy. So it's really fun when you're trying to replicate all of the nuances of a platform. So all of these menus are system calls that the language produces a struct, sends that struct over to the platform, and then we are natively replicating the Windows server that's running on these hardware devices. We have kind of tried to do bug for bug compatibility. So where an API doesn't quite match its documentation, we've had to make sure it fails in exactly the same ways, because otherwise you can't get it to work. And each and every one of these icons here actually represents, if I dig in, I can show this in the library, and then I can inspect it. So I can show the contents, and each of these is basically like a macOS app bundle. So we have a C drive because it needs to look like this running system. So you're doing all of the things that people do with emulators. We have, here's the system folder, here's the app, here are all the assets. And we had to write parsers for all of the different media files in here. So I don't know if that's actually gonna, no. I guess the audio routing isn't working for this, but you can drill in and you can look at all of the different file icon sets in this. And so we've had to write all the parsers for this. It was definitely one of those pandemic projects that would never have happened if we weren't stuck inside for a very long time. But it gives you some idea, and I think there's so much to dig into. So I don't know why my video has hung. That, yep, I think the video recording has stopped, so I can't show you any more of that, unfortunately, which might be a good time.
I was gonna say, that's like, you couldn't ask for a better
It's
ending
perfect.
point than that.
But we can talk about how you simulate hardware beeping devices in iOS, because it turns out you can't do that. You actually have to synthesize a sine wave on iOS to make it beep, even though it's a one-line command when you're talking to a piezo beeper. And there's all those things. And as Pavel said, I did a huge amount of work to walk the entire Internet Archive collection of software for these platforms, to pull out all the metadata and to build an app store-like experience so you can install the apps yourself. Yeah. Anyway, I think that's probably a good time to stop.
That seems like a massive amount of time to go through all of those. Like you were talking earlier about how you had to kind of reverse engineer APIs and make sure that they were breaking in all of the correct undocumented ways, which is just maddening.
And I have to be very clear that most of the most of the work for that was done by my friend Tom, who just deeply enjoys kind of digging into the absolute nuance of that. Much of my work was kind of, how do we bridge that gap between what is essentially a single-threaded runtime into the asynchronicity of a modern UI framework. So there's kind of a really fun boundary there, which you can dig into as well.
Awesome.
Like every piece of that project feels like a big project by itself. And then it's like 7 of them to actually make this work.
I feel like I was very much set up for that project based on the sort of random walk of my career more than anything else. But we can always dig into it in the future if you guys are excited.
Let's absolutely do that. I would love to do that. I think we're at a ending point here. Thanks both of you for hanging out.
I didn't have time for
Jason,
yours.
Thanks for bringing so much stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I want, if I do come back, I definitely want to make more space, because I'm excited to hear about your stuff next time.
It's all good. All I was going to share was I was going to talk about what I've put in place to build like a digital garden, so that I don't have to write an entire blog article to write about stuff. I can just publish my notes, and it's all basically like stuff that people have written for Obsidian. So it's like, just like connect a few things and boom, you have a digital garden that you can publish to really easily.
Well, I certainly encourage you to talk about it in the future because that sounds fascinating.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you guys for hanging out.
Thank you.
And
Thanks so much.
this was great. Take care.
See you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.